I'd like to talk to you about the new age for police recruitment in this country. The police announced this week that now 17-year-olds will be recruited to the force. Now, one police source, quoted by The Times, criticized the decision, saying that 17-year-olds have no life experience. And that's true. Could a 17-year-old handle the dangerous situations that our selfless, dedicated officers face day in, day out? What's interesting about this second parsha in the book of Genesis meaning the genealogy of one generation after another, is that we have a list in last week's parsha, a list of 10 generations from Adam to Noah, and then in this week's parsha, a list of 10 generations from Noah to Abraham. But there's a striking difference between the two lists. In the list last week, it tells us about each great man in each generation. Vayamot, and he died. Next generation. So-and-so lived, Vayamot, and he died. Open up this week's parsha, and no mention. So-and-so lived this and that many years. He had children. His children lived this and that many years. No mention of death. Why not? I want to offer you three explanations. First explanation is by Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, 20th century America. He says they all lived long lives prior to the flood, as we all know, hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. Some of them reaching almost 1,000 years. He says they could have surpassed that were it not for the sin of Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. And so that Vayamot, the fact that they died, was imposed upon them. Second answer is given by the Baal HaTurim, Rabbi Yaakov Baal HaTurim in 13th century Germany. He says that Vayamot and they died refers practically. They died along with all of their descendants in the flood. Were it not for the flood, they would still have descendants and their legacy would live on. But the flood came along and everyone perished. Vayamot, they died, their family died. There was no continuation. Third idea is presented by Rabbi Shlomo Kluger in the 19th century Ukraine, who says that the 10 generations from Adam till Noah, we have a weakening of one generation after another, each one becoming less and less spiritual, more and more corrupt, less and less moral, until finally the world is filled with corruption, and hence the great flood. Second time round, from Noah to Abraham, we have an increasing level of spirituality, an increasing awareness, a society that is progressing to the extent that Abraham is living in a time when they're building together, they're building the great Tower of Babel. Now, were their intentions all correct? Probably not. God felt the need to disperse them. But they were trying to make this world a better place to live. Their own direction needed to be given a new focus. And that's why Abraham came along and started to teach the world that it's not just about our world and technological advances. There's a God that we're here to serve. The key, though, according to Rabbi Shlomo Kluger, is that God wants us to progress, to constantly be growing, never satisfied with where we began, always on the rise, always becoming better and better. And that's how our lives should be, constantly about growth. You don't graduate from university with all the answers. Most of what you learn is on the job. And it should be a constant learning curve, constantly becoming better, wiser, smarter, better able to do our job, more experienced. So yes, a 17-year-old police constable may lack life experience, but so does an 18-year-old compared to a 19-year-old, 20, 25, 30, 35, 50-year-old police constable. The key is that one is growing. One's life experience is getting larger, greater. One's getting smarter at what one is doing. People often ask me, how long did it take you to become a rabbi? I used to answer 21 years. You see, I received my smicha, my rabbinic ordination, when I was 21. And I believe that every moment until that point led me to becoming a rabbi. So when I received that cloth, that piece of paper, my degree, that wasn't what made me a rabbi. It was all of the experiences up until that point. I've now rethought that. My answer now, how long did it take me to become a rabbi? 44 years and counting. I now hope that each year that I serve as a rabbi, I'm able to look back at the year before and say, wow, I hope I'm a better rabbi today than I was a year ago, and better then than I was 2 years ago, so that I'm constantly growing, becoming better at what I do. And that needs to be our aim in every facet of our lives. Am I a better husband, father, son, brother, friend, colleague, Jew, community contributor than I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? If you're the same as you were this time last year, you need to ask yourself why you haven't grown. Why you're not worlds apart from last year's you. Hopefully, this past year wasn't a write-off. It was a year of challenge. But hopefully, through those challenges, it was a year of growth, a year of life experience, and of becoming a better person, despite everything life has thrown our way. May you forever grow in every aspect of your life.